Okay. All right. So thanks again for joining me, and let's discuss product again. And if you can't hear me clearly, please let me know. Okay. Okay. So last time we discussed about innovation, and again, as mentioned to you before, innovation is actually the process of translating the new ideas into product services or process. Right. So that's what we mean by innovation. Okay. And we also say that innovation is actually ideas or new ideas times commercialization. Okay, so if we have ideas but we don't have the ability to commercialize it, or we don't know whether it will create value so we can commercialize it, then it is not innovation. Right? If we know something that may be valuable for customers but we don't have value yet, that means we still haven't got innovation. Right? So hopefully right. All right. Now let me just continue with that one, and the next thing that we discussed was the radical and incremental innovation. At a time, we need to be able to differentiate radical and incremental innovation. Radical innovation is basically about the innovation that drives changes from consumer perspective if they agree to adopt the innovation. Okay, we discussed the example, internet as the example. When internet was introduced, the way we communicate is different. Okay, and Australia Post, for instance, changed their business model from focusing on delivering mails to households into supporting e-commerce, because they know the internet has driven business growth for e-commerce business. Okay, so they now change that business model into because of the internet. Okay, so it drives changes from consumer perspective and also from the maker perspective. Okay, and incremental innovation it basically focuses on the current product or service. We just improve it to be better, to service the customers better. Okay, or in other words, we actually offer a new variety in regards to incremental innovation. Okay, and companies normally need to think about both types of innovation, both radical and incremental innovation, because the radical will generate high return if they are successful. Okay, of course, the risk of failure is also quite high in the case of radical innovation. Okay, but that helps them to bring the breakthrough for the customers, leading to competitive advantage. And on the other hand, incremental innovation is also needed by the company because they can keep the engagement with the customers. Okay, you may if you go to biscuit or snack aisle, you may find special edition, for instance. That's actually similar to the car concept, such as BMW limited edition Series 5, or Toyota or Mercedes limited edition, and so on and so forth. That's basically helping the marketers to build the communication with the customers, right? So in other words, the incremental innovation also contributes to build the brand loyalty. Okay. Again, in the case of radical innovation or disruptive innovation, I also gave a heads up that sometimes companies, feel, okay, I'm sailing, like, I'm just gliding in running my business, like, a smooth sail, but suddenly someone launched a disruption into that category. I gave examples of the of Airbnb, for instance. Okay, they changed the model of running hotel business through in the previous model. To run a hotel business, we must have the property. But they changed the equation, they changed the logic, they changed the paradigm, saying, hey, hang on a second, I don't have to have one. Okay, but I can populate a number of customers. I can build the community, right, who will travel, and the community who will also be able to share their property. Okay, and the same thing to Uber, for instance. If you refer to Uber Taxi, for instance, or Uber Eats, for instance, right? That's basically challenging the current business model of running taxi, hotel business, and a fitness business as well. If you refer to Fitness Passport in New South Wales, for instance. So they populate a number of potential members, and they negotiate to the fitness clubs and to get a certain special rate, basically. And then so again, they challenge the business model. Okay, right. So and that's actually one of the things in terms of collaborative consumption from a marketing concept perspective, or it is also labeled as the sharing economy, because the basic thinking about that is actually when people buy certain assets such as cars or a property, for instance, they may not be able to use it on and on. So they may want to share it with someone else, and they'll charge certain fees. Okay, so that's so there are two things in terms of radical innovation, disruptive innovation, that may give disruption to the industry. Okay, first the different thinking in running the business, in running the thinking differently in creating the business model. Second, the growing trend of the awareness that people, when they buy assets, they may not use it on and on. So they may want to share it, and of course they expect to charge certain fees. Okay, right. So sources of innovation, we discussed that briefly. I know that the connection was not that good, so let's have a look at it again. The unexpected occurrences basically revolves around the innovation that may be a kind of lucky strike, as I mentioned last time. So some innovations happen because kind of accidentally. Like Alexander Fleming, for instance, found penicillin, and in the lab he found that it kills bacteria, and they say, hey, why don't we commercialize it, right, to help people. And the second one is interesting from marketing perspective and incongruities, because it is our task in marketing actually to find out the gaps in the market. So find the discrepancy in terms of what the customer needs are, and what the product available in the market at the moment. Okay, so find the gap between what the customers need and the offer that the industry that has been committing so far. Okay, and in saying that, finding the gap actually goes back to what we call as analyzing the opportunities. Okay, analyzing the opportunities, where the opportunities are. Okay, now that may remind you your own past analysis. Okay, your own past analysis. Okay, so if you do innovation subject, for instance, I trust you come back to that spot, understanding the opportunities, where the opportunities are, because that is the starting point for innovators to think about ideas. Okay, so the outcome of your past analysis should be favorable impact and unfavorable impact, right? Now, out of those favorable impacts, then you need to think about the idea to exploit them, right? That is basically a starting point in where the innovators need to consider, okay, what can we do about it, right? What are the ideas to fulfill that opportunity? Okay. The next one is process needs, which is basically about finding weak spots to correct and redesign it. So here, engineers are normally like it, understanding the process. They normally look at the flow chart in terms of doing things, certain things in the organization, and find the weak spots, and they redesign it to be better. Okay? And the next one is about industry and market structure changes. For instance, deregulation that the government launched, for instance, may provide opportunities as well for the companies. Okay, and just a bit of example. I think it was still in John Howard period when he was the prime minister. He deregulated the airline industry. So at the time before the deregulation, it was only Qantas that can fly domestic destinations, and then he deregulated the industry. He invited foreign airlines to fly domestic destinations as well. So that opens, that restructured the market as well. Okay, as a result. Yeah. And the next ones are basically a few things in here, like demographic changes may provide some opportunities as well for us. If you refer to your pastel analysis or past analysis, the populations changes may generate certain opportunities for marketing organizations. If you look at Australian population, for instance, which is basically aging population, you may find that it may provide some opportunities for certain organizations, right? If you work in consumer healthcare category, for instance, and if you look at Asia Pacific region, you need to think about different type of innovations that you need to drive for Australia compared to the other markets in Asia Pacific. Indonesia, Thailand, for instance, the populations are profiled pretty much a young population compared to countries like Australia and Japan, for instance. So you need to think about it from different perspective. Okay? Perceptual changes. So sometimes innovation happens because we can change the perception of the customers. And the last one is new knowledge, where universities may do research, or private organizations such as the ones in medical industry or pharmaceutical industry may do research, and they find new things, new formula, new ingredient, new chemical, for instance, that generates innovations as well. Okay, that generates new ideas for innovation. All right. As an example, again, if I use internet, when people invented internet, they launched internet, that opens new opportunities. Right. That is the new knowledge that we adopt. Okay. Customers are happy with internet. We are happy with internet, and business people are also happy with it. And then from that internet, they step up to the next level into social media, for instance, with Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and so on and so forth, based on the new knowledge that people develop with the new knowledge or new technology that people developed. Okay. Right, so there are some sources of innovation. Now, the thing is, yes, we've done analysis, either through past analysis, micro environmental analysis, okay, and we generate, we identify some opportunities. Let's say from our past analysis and micro environmental analysis, we found 10 opportunities, for instance, right? The question is, out of these 10 opportunities, which ones that will generate strong ideas for us? Which ones that generate the winning ideas for us? Okay, because not all ideas are worth for us to launch. Okay, for a number of reasons, right? One of the reasons is resources, right? Although we are, we are a big company, large multinational company, we also need to think about the resources. Okay, when we bring new idea to the market, when we bring new product, new service to the market, that means we need to put resources behind it. Okay, and we need to use the resources that we have wisely. Okay, and the other thing that you also need to consider is, well, hang on a second. Probably the idea that we generate in here may not be the winner, may not be the big winner in the market. So why do we bother thinking about those ideas, right? Okay, so these ones are basically a bit of checklist in terms of screening the opportunities. The first one is actually about screening the opportunity from product feasibility perspective, which is basically about whether can we make it. Okay, can we make it or not? Okay, yes, we've got the ID, we know the opportunity, we have translated the opportunity into ID, and the question for us is whether we can make it or not. Okay, can we make can we make this product or not? Right? Do we have the capability to make it or not? Okay, and the next one that we also need to ask ourselves is actually about market feasibility. All right, do we have customers or not? Interested in buying, the customers are not interested in buying this product, okay? Interested in buying this product, okay, or service. Okay, do we have the customers or not? Are they wanting to buy this product or service? Okay, so that calls for market research actually, okay? And the next one is actually about the economic feasibility. Right, which is basically about the cost. Can we make it in the right cost or not? Okay, because at the end of the day, we do business to eventually to generate profit. Okay, can we make profit or not out of those things? Right. So they are the screening process actually when it comes to reviewing or assessing the ideas that we have generated. Okay, right. So that's basically the innovation, guys. And the next thing that I'd like to briefly discuss is the creativity. Now, the creativity, as mentioned to you before, innovation, entrepreneurship, and creativity are related one to another. Okay, and creativity in here is actually defined as the production of new and useful ideas. And we know that innovation is also related to ideas. Okay, the implementation of ideas into product, service, or process. Now, creativity itself is the production of new and useful ideas. Okay, well, that may be confusing. Okay, so what's the difference between creativity and innovation, and also entrepreneurship? Okay, well, at creativity level, okay, the idea is based on the knowledge. Okay, based on the knowledge that is still raw. Okay, or the knowledge that we have is still raw, quite raw. Okay, what do we mean by raw? Well, we just got the ID. Okay, we got the ID here. Okay, does it work or not? We still don't know. Okay, and then at innovation level, we convert the knowledge into, or we refine the knowledge to be more precise. Refine the knowledge, right? So we can translate it into product or service. Okay, so we can translate it into product or service. Okay, and at entrepreneurship level, we actually commercialize the knowledge. We commercialize the knowledge. Okay, we commercialize the knowledge. In this instance, we have translated the knowledge into product or service. Okay, we commercialize it. Okay, so therefore, if you look at the three of them, creativity, innovation, and entrepreneurship, the word that links all the three concepts is basically about the knowledge. Okay, the knowledge is evolved until up to the entrepreneurship level. Okay, right. So that's basically creativity in a nutshell. And now, look, a number of people use different techniques. If you type in your Google search box creativity techniques, you may find a number of techniques as well that people have been publishing. And the three in here are basically quite popular. Attribute listing, for instance, there are two steps in terms of attribute listings that people use when people use attribute listing. The first step is actually about listing the attributes. We list down the attributes, okay, of the problem, or if you analyze competitors' products for your product ID, for instance, to generate your own ID for your own product, then you list down the competitors' attributes, all right, the competitors' product attributes, right? Think about Samsung, for instance. When you know that Apple launched the first generation of iPhone and you are also interested in going to that market, then you are going to list down the attributes that they're offering. Okay, touchscreen, it can connect to the internet, nice display, easy to connect to internet, friendly, easy to use, and so on and so forth. You list them down, right? Price, the screen size, and so on and so forth, right? The next thing that you need to think about is the improvement. What else can you improve? Okay, out of 10 attributes that you analyzed, right, of the for the problem or your competitors' products, then you think about the improvement. What else can we do to improve this? Okay, the same thing. If you if you work for iPhone, for instance, and you need to think about the next improvement, and you use this technique, then you list down the attributes that you have been offering for the customer so far. What else can you do? Well, improvement in here, and the interesting thing from Apple perspective is that improvement is not always about adding. Okay, it can also be delete. It can also be about deleting. Okay, so they delete the jackpot, for instance. Okay, when they launch an iPhone 8, for instance. Okay, so that's one thing that that you can also consider. Okay. The next one is brainstorming, which is basically using conference technique. In the case of brainstorming, if you select that one, you normally, I would suggest that you defer your judgment and you judge the ideas together at the end of the brainstorming session. Okay, so you invite people to come to a conference or a meeting room and get people's ideas, right? And you list down all the ideas, and then at the end of the session, towards the end of the session, then you score them together. Okay, and of course that helps you to screen which ideas are going that you will proceed. Okay? Now the next one's mind mapping. Mind mapping is actually using visual technique to map the ideas. Right? If you think about fast food, for instance, or chocolate bar category, then you map the issues related or attributes related to the product or the problem or service that you are analyzing. Okay, right. So that's basically creativity techniques in a nutshell. And again, these three things are basically related one to another: creativity, innovation, and entrepreneurship. And the word that link them is basically the knowledge. Okay. Right. So far, any questions, guys?
No, thanks, Eddie.
Yep. All good.
No.
Yep. Brilliant. Right, now let's move on to the next one, product decision. As mentioned to you before, starting from this week, actually, we are going to cover marketing mix variables because they are part of the marketing mix marketing plan that we are going to design. Okay. Now, just before we start with the marketing, with the product decision, I just want to remind you again, everything that you analyze in your marketing mix variables, please make sure that they are related to your positioning strategy. And when you write your positioning strategy, when you outline your positioning strategy, I would strongly recommend you to outline the perceptual map. Okay, you can use quality and price like the ones shown in here, right? But look, if you use quality and price, you may find comment from me. Please think about the other attributes that may hook to the core needs of the customers in your product category. Okay, especially in the case of quality. Look, if you look at any product categories, right? If you look at all brands offered in the market, they always say quality, quality, quality. So the word quality may have become generic. Okay, so we as a marketer need to define what we mean by quality in our product category. Specifically, what we mean by quality that our brand offers. Okay, so that's perceptual map. Okay, and after the perceptual map, can you please also outline the positioning statement? Okay, and then show the link between your positioning statement to your marketing mix variables. All right. And that's the positioning statement. How do we write a positioning statement? Well, that's the formula to write a positioning statement. Okay, to what target market with what need. Our brand is what concept. That concept in here is basically what we promise for the customers, right? And the points of difference in here are basically related to the competitive advantage. If you look at your assessments. You also need to show whether you are offering a positioning statement based on your competitive advantage. Okay, and if you recall our point of differentiation topic that we discussed some time ago, that helps us leading to the competitive advantage. Okay, all right. And again, we need to make sure that everything that we develop, or marketing mix variables that we develop, supports the positioning strategy. And I believe before the Christmas break, I gave an example using Aldi at the time, showing you how Aldi designed their target market, positioning strategy, and then the product, price, place, and promotion. Okay. And of course, at that time, it was a brief snapshot, and we need to detail the marketing variables using the relevant concepts. Okay. Okay. Now let's look at product. Okay. Look, every day we buy product or service. Okay. We buy product or service, and from definition perspective, some people say product is something that we make in the plant or we offer for the customers. Okay, I would suggest that you start with the customers. Okay, so when you define a product, you may want to include the customer's need in here. Okay, so you can start with the understanding the customers. So product is actually anything that we can offer for attention, acquisition, use, or consumption that might satisfy or a want or need. Now we use the word might in here, so it might meet the customer's need, it might not, right? Like the one that happened to me, to my internet connection. Okay, so that's what we mean by product. Okay, so please do not define a product as the anything that we make. Okay, because if you do, then actually you are referring to the olden textbook. Okay. Again, as we discussed some time ago, meeting customers' needs, meeting customers' wants is actually affected by the customer's personality and also cultural background. If you look at these two products, for instance, Kit Kat soy sauce, Kit Kat wasabi. Guys, anyone interested to buy?
I'll go for the wasabi one. I love that stuff.
Right. Okay. Fair enough. Any other comments?
What would you do in Australia then? Did you have the Vegemite one?
Well, I could not find Kit Kat soy sauce, Kit Kat wasabi. I've been looking for it actually, but the one I could find is Kit Kat green tea, which is still fine probably for a lot of us, but wasabi and soy sauce probably are quite unique. They launched it in Japan, and look, I don't have data, but it seems to work quite well in those in that market. Okay, and you can imagine that if we launch it in Australia, probably a group of people may want to try it. Because of being novelty, and then as you also mentioned, what do we expect with this product? Well, some people may try it, and I don't know whether these people will become the customers. Okay, but nonetheless, I'm bringing this as an example to you, as to show that the product that we create, actually that we design, actually needs to consider the personality and also the cultural background target group. Okay. Right. Product, services, and experiences. You may recall that in week 1 we discussed that we use the term market offering, not product, when we define marketing. The reason for that is to meet the customer's need. We need to think beyond the product. Okay. In fact, companies actually add with services and build the experience of the customers to win the customers, actually, okay, to help them differentiating their offering, and eventually they want to win the competition. Okay. And if we look at the product itself, from product planning perspective, we need to consider what we call as 3 levels of product. Now, look, guys, this is the concept that I'd like you to use in your marketing analysis for your in your product analysis, because this concept helps you to detail your product analysis. Okay, so there are 3 levels of products. The first one is core customer value or core product. It is actually about what the customer is really buying. Okay, what value that they're expecting. Okay, so it actually reflects the reasons why customers buy. Okay, Now, the reason why customers buy actually related to their needs and wants, okay? Or in other words, it is actually the benefit that they expect, okay? So what is the core value? What is the core benefit that they expect, okay? So when customers buy a drill, for instance, well, it's not because they want to have, you know, a tool at home. It's because they want to make a hole, okay? Why do they want to make a hole? Well, it could be to hang picture or whatever, right? But the main reason why the customers buy a drill is to make a hole. Then it is actually the core benefit of that product, the core customer value of that product, right? So it is the main function, the main job of the product, okay? Now, the next thing is core customer value should be related to the actual product, okay? Because if you look at that, core customer value is actually abstract. It is the premise that we want to convey through the product for the customers, okay? And it has to be translated clearly through our actual product. Now, the actual product itself includes the brand name, features, design, packaging, and quality level, okay? And they should actually, all 5 elements in here should be used to help you detailing the product analysis, okay? So if we go back to the drill, well, the brand name could be Ryobi, for instance, and the features, you detail the features, how you design it, you explain the design, okay? It looks like a gun, for instance, in terms of designing it. And the packaging, well, it is in the box, and you also give them a cover before it goes to the box. And quality level, you decide whether it is at top level quality or average quality or inferior quality because you want to slash the price, for instance, okay? And and after that, we also need to design our augmented product. Augmented product is the additional or extra benefit that we offer for the customers. They include the warranty, okay, information that we offer for the customers, and also post-sale service, okay. Contact number, for instance, is an example. Customer contact number is an example to help the customers enhancing using the product, basically. Okay. Now, if you look at that, if you design a premium product, then you want to put, fantastic features, design, and so on and so forth. And also the augmented product, you want to offer the strong customer support. If you are offering premium products, all right. And if you compare to a budget product or budget brand, then you may want to simplify the augmented product. In fact, you may not offer any augmented product probably because of budget offering, and you may want to simplify the features as well, right? If you look at home brand, for instance, or supermarket brands, private labels, they simplify the features, they simplify the design, just plain design, home brand or Kohl's brand, and so on and so forth. That reflects the budget brand, okay? Right, guys, can I suggest that we stop there and then we come back to the meeting room? Give me a couple of minutes because I got warning already. And please click the same link so we can come back to the meeting room. Yeah.